I'm sketching. Yeah.
Is that a computer?
No, it's a sketchbook.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Yeah.
I've been here watching you going, what is he doing?
Yeah, I know. People wonder a lot. I get that. So besides freaking out the neighbors, there's a lot of really good reasons why doing some shorter 20-minute sketches, 15-minute sketches is actually superior to doing, long plein air paintings. Number one is you'll only freak out the neighbors for 20 minutes instead of an hour and a half. No, I'm just kidding. But honestly, I think the more that I'm doing these kind of short, quick, easy sketches in the morning, I'm really, really seeing a lot of the value of them. So, one of the things that I notice a lot is that it's forcing me to not be overly precious about finding the perfect scene. I would say so far, like every day that I've done one of these, it's literally been within 30 seconds of my house. So I'm really finding things that are part of the everyday, part of my everyday world, part of my everyday experience, but I also am starting to have my eyes opened to seeing the beauty all around me, which I think is like one of the most valuable benefits of having a plein air or sketching practice or just doing art in general. And so I would say that, for most of us, if you've been trying to do plein air painting or urban sketching, or just you're starting to get into it, either way, you're going to notice pretty quickly that finding subjects to sketch is one of the most difficult things that you'll do. And so, if you really are just committed more to the process of getting up there and sketching rather than desiring, the perfect outcome, you're going to actually start to get better compositions. You're going to start to get better scenes, and you're going to learn how to turn really whatever's in front of you into something valuable. And so that, I think, is one of the number one things why doing a lot of quick sketches is really valuable. Another thing about it is that it really creates iterations. I think like when you can do a sketch and then repeat the process and then repeat the process and then repeat the process, since it's not taking a long time, it's not taking a lot of effort, it's not taking a lot of investment, it's easy for you to complete it and then to build upon your success or your failures from the last one and just keep going, right? And a lot of times, to me, I think when you're pursuing an art practice, one of the most important things is that you really continue to take steps forward. You have to address, you actually have to work through problems, right? You need to find problems and start to build solutions. And that almost invariably requires multiple steps in a process. And so the fact that you're able to iterate and do several sketches, say in a week, you're able to kind of help yourself and train your brain to work through those problems, sketch after sketch after sketch. Right now, because I'm painting with tonal values, just using black and white, it's forcing my brain to think about what's the brightest thing in my scene. But in this case, we all know the rule that the sky is the brightest thing in the scene. But actually, in this specific scene, I find that when sunlight is hitting directly on a white object like this house, that a lot of times that's actually going to be a little bit brighter, at least perceptually, than the sky. The other thing that I was thinking about was, do I have to follow exactly the lighting that I'm seeing, or can I be creative, kind of like we talked in our last video, emphasizing the artifice of art? Can I actually say, this is my focal point, so I want to make it a little bit more brighter than maybe it actually is, right now when I'm looking at it. To me, actually getting to practice making those decisions is part of the blessing of getting to do these shorter sketches. to be honest with you, like if I were doing like a full, what I consider a full plein air painting, which is going to take me, an hour and a half to 3 hours, I probably would say like this scene isn't worth sketching. I would feel like I wanted to invest my time in something more worthy than just my neighbor's house, right? And so a lot of times we can get crippled by indecision, and we can almost have like an arrogant view towards reality, and that like this isn't worth my time. And I think actually, genuinely, a lot of us hold that viewpoint when it just comes to sketching in general. That if it's not going to be a masterpiece of artwork, that it's not worth my time. And that's essentially an attitude of arrogance. And I would just strongly encourage you to, push back against that in yourself. That really doing things that are not of the highest finish, but are more utilitarian in terms of, honestly, like the greatest utility for me in art making is the experience itself. Like, I'm happier if I get to make art than if I don't get to make art, so that's a very fun thing. But I'm also working through a lot of problems, right? Tonal values is a problem for me that I'm trying to constantly work on and improve so that I can get higher realism. Obviously, by doing a lot of these sketches, I'm also working to improve my compositions and to be able to find scenes and make scenes out of whatever's in front of me. Also, I'm practicing that, aspect of artistry where you connect with something and you make a choice about it. Right here, I'm choosing to direct the eye to a specific tonal value, and I'm utilizing light. I'm trying to bend light to my will to make something stand out and create an effect, right? And I'm practicing it. And this is, a few inches by a few inches. So I'm not wasting a lot of art material, and I'm not wasting a lot of time on this experiment. That's all that it is an experiment. But I'm learning a lot from that. And the more that I've done several of these sketches, some of them I know that I just want to leave as a sketch. And, it'll simply be an exercise in drawing, in composition, in lighting, in tonal values, in translating, letting nature be our teacher and translating that as much as we can, as quickly as we can, to the page. But also, some of these sketches, again, where I'm thinking like this isn't anything special, I'm just here to do what I'm doing. Some of them have really jumped out at me as like, whoa, wait a second, that turned out really cool. I think maybe I want to turn that into a studio painting. And so, letting the art itself be your instructor, letting the process itself be your instructor. You can't really identify and say what your weaknesses are and what your strengths are until you gain experience. And the more that you can iterate with these smaller pieces, these shorter pieces, you're getting much more experience, right? I think like allowing yourself to get a lot of experiences under your belt with various scenes, but also building consistency. For instance, I'm using the same color palette all of the time, and honestly, after a week of doing this, I'm starting to like want to experiment. You're going to see some more of those experiments on my channel, where rather than painting on toned paper, I paint on white paper, and rather than always painting opaquely, I start to paint transparently as well. So I think like the more that you can iterate and the more that you can experiment and try all of these things, it actually generates ideas for you. So, it's difficult for me to do the long form plein air paintings over and over and over again. And so those realizations, those aha moments that come after doing 10 paintings, because I'm able to plein air paint, for 3 hours. So it requires more from me, so I do it less frequently. Those aha moments are going to come less frequently too. And so I really think like the bang for your buck in terms of the time and investment and energy, but that you put into short, quick little sketches. And by the way, you don't have to do it in gouache. You could do sketches even more simply and immediately just with pencil and paper, or whatever medium is easiest for you. Because I know that like even just doing it with gouache One of the problems it's making me confront is how can I simplify it with gouache? And it's making me think, how can I simplify my process with oil paint? And I'm starting to think about my setup and my kit, and all of these things. But like you have to create the avenue wherein you will start to solve these problems. You have to spend time thinking about the problem, and you'll only really interface with the problem if you paint a lot. So if you have the luxury to go out and paint 3 hours a day every single day, then you should do that 100%. But I think like even in that scenario, like if you painted 3 hours a day on one painting, you will get a certain type of experience. But if you paint 3 hours a day doing 20-minute sketches, you're gonna again iterate so much more. And so you have to really think about, this is something I've been thinking a lot about for myself, and I want to share it with you guys, which is the essence of learning anything, any skill, any knowledge. The essence of learning is literally just thinking about something. And you have to spend time thinking about whatever it is that you want to learn. So if you want to learn how to paint better, you have to spend time thinking about painting. And one of the best ways to do that is to iterate a lot. It's not just a factor of how much time you spend painting, it's also a factor of how many paintings you do. Because the more that you do that, the more that you're solving multiple problems, and addressing multiple, different situations. Every time I do a sketch, right now it's a different scene, whereas when I'm painting in the studio, I'm painting the same scene for a week sometimes. And, that is an area that I want to get better at as well. Painting slower versus doing what we're doing here, which is painting quickly, and not being precious. And I think both of them benefit you in different ways, because, when we slow down, you really have time to think about every individual brushstroke and about individual techniques and about the best way to do it. Whereas doing a sketch like this is almost like thinking on your feet and improvising like jazz. And you have to, try to invent something quickly. And that's really an essential skill in plein air, because the lighting situations change quickly as well. And so, spend some time, I think, in your own art practice trying to really work on both sides of the coin, where you want to do some paintings, whether they're plein air in the studio, that you spend an extended period of time with. And, let's face it, while we all want that, it also costs us a lot. If you're going to go out and paint for 3 or 4 hours, that's 3 or 4 hours spent painting that you're, allocating away from other things. If you can make the sacrifice to do that, you should. But if you can't, it's really difficult. It's really difficult to arrange that. As I talked in, one of my videos recently, I'm trying to actually plan ahead and take at least one day a month where I say I'm going to paint for 4 hours or 5 hours or 6 hours or however much I can, and like put it on the calendar and put in like a serious workload on those days. But it actually requires that amount of forethought if I'm going to get that done. Being that I'm not a professional artist, and that's just not automatically on my schedule. I have other things, and the odds are that you do too. That's why this sketching habit of doing something that's short, quick, immediate, and iterative can be so beneficial to you, because all of those sacrifices that you have to make, or that you feel like you have to make, to try to learn and improve your skill set, can actually be taken care of at a much lower cost and at a much more rapid rate. And so I think the ideal situation is to really negotiate your schedule and your art practice to incorporate both long form art making and short, quick sketching as well. And I think that they benefit each other. But this is the second painting that I've done in this series, and I felt like it was like dramatically better than the first one. And as I'm watching this back, I'm thinking to myself, why was it so much better? One of the things is I think that the composition is much better. I also think that the lighting effect is much better. I like the varieties of tones. When I scrutinize the composition, I'm thinking about the strong verticals and the design of the shapes and things of that nature. So, you don't necessarily need an art professor to explain all these things to you. You can be your own art professor. But if you had an art professor, what would they tell you to do? They would tell you to get out there and paint. And so we have to do that for ourselves. We have to, organize and machine a program for ourselves that is there to instruct us and to teach us. And that's why I think, in a lot of ways, these shorter sketches are actually more beneficial than the longer ones. You've seen me here kind of lay down a variety of tones, and I just kept the house itself the brightest bright. And then I'm thinking about like my verticals that are in shadow as being dark. And then there's some verticals like the tree on the right that are not quite in, they have light raking across it, so I made that tree a little bit less dark. And one thing that's kind of fun about painting tonal values is like you have to translate color into just black and white, which is quite challenging sometimes. Here, I'm just adding some highlights to the trees to try and make it have a little bit more form since the light is coming from the right side. So on the right side of all of these, there will be a little bit of light. I think one of my favorite parts of this was just creating that sense of light on the chimney and on the front face of the house. And one thing I've always struggled with is windows. And I love using this kind of long flat brush and just laying in windows very simply. And it kind of reminds me of some of the impressionistic paintings I've seen from, the 19th century. I'm also really enjoying like the back and forth between really using ivory black and titanium white. You get a lot of cool colors that are really, if they're not dark, the grays are very almost bluish in comparison to the tan paper I'm painting on. So I'm enjoying that, and it's giving me more ideas that we'll explore in future videos about how to play with warms and cools. And so to me, I feel like after doing a bunch of these, I'm like learning not just to adjust tonal values, but I'm learning to also adjust color temperature. And that's something that I want to do in my full color paintings as well.
Hey guys, let's read some comments from you guys. Holly Vielia said 554 said lovely. Thanks for sharing. Thank you, Holly. She was commenting on this winter plein air acrylic painting that I recently did, and that one was really fun to do. So I'm glad that you liked it. CD Sketch said about the same video, it's crazy you were able to get that much done in less than an hour. Do you think speed is just a natural skill, or have you been consciously working on it? And that's a great question. Is speed a natural skill? Probably it is for some people, but it definitely isn't for me. I remember some of my very first paintings, like recently I did a sketchbook tour of some of my first urban sketches and plein air paintings. And man, like a very small sketchbook page would easily take me 3-4 hours. Sometimes I would double that. I would come back on multiple days. So I would spend on like one little sketchbook page of mediocrity would still take me like 8 hours to complete it. And I think for me, that was because just sort of the mental processes of like thinking through color and line and shape and all of the things that I had to do as a beginner, it just took a long time. And I honestly think that that's okay. I think that there's no need to feel like you need to rush. I think we just need to go the speed that we need to go at. And I think a lot of times actually slowing down is maybe even better. And that's something I've been noticing with like this painting back here. When I paint in the studio, you have so much time to slow down your thinking and to really problem solve and think through things. And I think like that can really be beneficial too. So while I think that speed comes probably with experience, and I think that there's things that you can do. If you want to speed up doing things like a 15-minute sketch or a 10-minute sketch, doing smaller sketches and sketching frequently or painting frequently, drawing frequently, I think all of those things will speed you up. It's kind of like a baby learning how to walk, right? At first it's rocky and slow and difficult, and then they toddle and crawl and toddle and everything, and then eventually you grow up and you can walk and run. and you don't think about it, right? It doesn't even take that much processing power. But when you're starting out, it's like the hardest thing that you can do. And I think it's like that with our growth with art as well. All the various things from drawing to color mixing to composition, all of those things take time. And there's only one way to get better at it, and that's to do it. And you have to earn that experience. And I don't think that you can force the speed. With this acrylic painting, I mean, thinking about acrylic or gouache or watercolor, those are all water-based paints that tend to dry more quickly, especially acrylic. And so I think that did help me, and that's something that those were open acrylics, so they stay a little longer, but I actually want to experiment a little bit more with traditional acrylics that will dry fast and see if that does speed up my process. So I think you can make some choices like that. And I also think that you can make some compositional choices, but ultimately I think like speed's not the most important thing. I think the most important thing is that you get out there and that you have to earn those miles for yourself. In order to be fast, you have to be slow first. Well, I think that'll do it for today. Thanks so much for leaving comments. Thank you guys for watching these videos. Thank you to anybody who's leaving a super thanks. That's going to help me afford a new camera tripod that I need because my tripod broke. It's literally in pieces on the floor right now. So anybody who leaves a super thanks, that's going to go towards that. But even just for watching, just for being around and leaving comments and being part of this community, I appreciate you guys so much. And I honestly just look forward to interacting with you all and hearing from you guys. And so I hope that you guys remember that you have a voice that matters. Go be creative, and I'll see you next time.